session. It has been 3 amazing days of intense conversation. By the grace of God, we are live now, and we're going to take the final day of this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 3 of this live discussion, transformational. Nike is my wife. Ronke is my life. I don't want 2 wives. What do I do? Profound conversations. The last 2 days, we have been trying to figure out why is it that people get married first of all, then they now discover who they call the right person. And this conversation has been about finding out why does it happen that way to some people. Is it that they really discovered the right person? What is the guarantee that they will not later discover another person as the right person, especially if we allow flickers of emotions to become the basis upon which we negotiate relationship? Is it possible that there is something, because like we said, in the course of a relationship, times will come when you don't feel love. Is it possible that there are things people can do to reignite passion, emotions, and connection instead of jumping from one person to the other and then complicating issues both for themselves, for those people, and then for the children that they bring into the world? Once again, I want to use this opportunity to welcome Pastor Victor Gabriel Oladija Ayodele, all the way from the city of Abuja, as he joins us again today for this conversation. All right, Mr. Victor, yesterday at the end of class on the platform, somebody asked a question. And I think it is only reasonable that we begin from that question, answer that question, and then take this conversation to the next level. The person asked, because at some point yesterday, we were saying that part of the challenge that people have is that they have not discovered who they are. There is an identity crisis that is making people not to be able to find themselves, which complicates the possibility of them recognizing who the right person is. If we become the right person, it will be easier to find the right person. When we focus on finding the right person, when we are not the right person, we are going to attract our kind, the kind that is not the right person. So focus should be on becoming the right person, which in fact, you used a description yesterday that for me was profound when you said if you don't discover your vehicle model, then you have a situation where you buy the wrong tire. Profound. Then somebody now asked a question yesterday. He says, what if finding yourself takes so long? What if finding yourself takes so long? What answer do you have for such a person?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was muted. So, that's a really complicated question. It's possible that the journey of finding oneself differs from person to person. And basically, the whole idea of education is to bring us to a point where we can comprehend purpose. And so every single thing that we've done from when we were in kindergarten up until this point is supposed to add up onto our discovery of ourselves. But it's a pity that the systems that are in place right now, if you don't outsource certain layers of knowledge, you won't be able to discover certain things about yourself. Primarily, self-discovery comes in the knowledge of God. Yeah. People can discover themselves outside God. They can discover whatever it is, maybe from their talents, whatever. But if we are going to find the primary reason why we were created or we're programmed to be on earth at this point, then it has to be in God. And truly, God is not doing hide and seek with us. So the art of self-discovery is not supposed to be an endless journey because you were designed for a reason. And the faster you realize what you were designed for, the earlier the solutions that your creation was for. Yeah, so God is not going to intentionally hide the purpose away from you. And so the journey is not going to be unnecessarily long. So if someone is having problems, that's where mentorship comes in. So if you're trying to discover yourself and you've not been able to find yourself forever and ever, that's where there's mentorship. You can have people who have gone before, who have trailed a certain pathway. Look for people, industry leaders in the area where your heart is leading on to, and then have conversations with them. In those conversations, in those mentorship sessions, you would be able to find yourself. Because if you don't know who you are, like we said yesterday, it's going to be a lot, not just in your decision for marriage, career path, a lot of things. Many people would have gone far in their life before they discover that this is not really their passion, and now they begin to do their passion in their old age, which is not bad, but you won't be able to achieve much. So I think mentorship will be a solution. If you can't find it on your own, at least get guidance.
Profound. Pastor Victor recommends that we should seek mentorship to guide us in finding our purpose. And I totally agree with you. Let me, in the next 3 minutes, convert this table to a mentorship session. Sometimes, when we talk about finding purpose, even those who talk about it can make it look complicated.
Yes, sir.
And I'm all about simplifying these things so that people, it shouldn't take rocket science to find purpose. For me, the question about finding your purpose is about number one, what is the problem that you solve uniquely
Yeah.
in the human space? Number one,
Yes, sir.
that problem you solve has to be such problem that the way you solve it is completely different from how any other person solves it. Number three, then identify the people for whom you solve that problem. Three things. Number one, you are wired in such a way that there are certain problems. Life purpose is primarily about problem solving.
Yes, sir.
Everybody on the earth is created, designed uniquely to solve a particular problem. And the way you will know the problem you are created to solve is that you have a unique way to solve it that is different from how other people solve the same problem. So identify the problem, identify the unique way you solve it, and then number three, look for the people that when you solve the problem, they can relate with it.
Yes.
Those become your target, your focus, the people you are sent to. If you dedicate your life to solving that problem in a unique way and identifying your market, identifying the people you are sent to, purpose is clearly defined.
Yes, sir.
Like what Victor said, how you arrive at discovering the problem you solve is a different ballgame, whether by spiritual encounters, whether by experience over time. Having look back at history and looked at the problems that you solve effortlessly. Because when you enter into the realm of purpose, life is easy. Life is effortless. The struggles are over. You do little or nothing. I'm not reducing the fact that hard work will always be there any day. But when you enter into your purpose, you do things effortlessly and you are solving problems. And there are people that gravitate towards you because you are addressing their needs. If we stay with this, you discover that Finding purpose is not rocket science. It is when you now find this purpose, the next question will now be, who is that person who can be part of my life that helps me fulfill this purpose? Everybody does not have the capacity. They may be beautiful, they may connect with you emotionally, they may have certain features,
Yes, sir.
but they may not be wired technically, mentally, emotionally, or otherwise. They may not be wired, they may not have the capacity to come into your space and become relevant at helping you fulfill that purpose.
Sure.
So you want to, that purpose now guides, that purpose now defines who you want to do life with. Once you come to this place, you realize that it's beyond the butterfly feelings, it's necessary. It's beyond the lovey-dovey, it's necessary. But it goes beyond that to purposes that are higher than yourself and higher than that person. So you don't want to go pick a lady if you're the guy, or pick a guy or accept a guy if you're the lady, without asking yourself, apart from me being wired to be a help for them, am I also, are they also wired to help me? We must develop, define whether we have the capacity to be a blessing, to help people fulfill purpose, to stand in their life, and then the narrative changes. My view, until you have found purpose, the likelihood of picking the wrong person is very high. I would therefore recommend that it should not be our biological clocks ticking and telling us when to get married. Oh, I'm 35, I gotta get married. I'm 45, I gotta get married. I don't think that's the right way to go. I think the right way to go is, I have found purpose. Now I need people in my space that will help me fulfill that purpose, whose presence will activate, whose presence will empower, whose presence will add value to my fulfilling that purpose. Until purpose is found, I repeat, the probability that you are going to choose the wrong person and then later find out that they are not the right person and begin to think that someone else is the right person, that proclivity, that tendency, that possibility is very high, and you don't want to mess with that. For me, this is so important. I want to hope that a good attempt has been done to the question by the person that asked that question. One of the comments from yesterday's session that is also profound for me is someone said, yes, so I am glad I took advantage of the clarity challenge. It was worthwhile. Somebody said that. And that's profound because the clarity challenge that was put in place, created by the Love Life Institute, is designed in very profound ways to help you discover you, first of all, then discover purpose, then discover your partner. You don't want to mess with that. There's nobody who has participated in the Clarity Challenge who did not experience transformation. I want to encourage you to take advantage of it. Like I said before now, the high point of yesterday's session was that point when you said, you don't know what brand of car you are likely to buy a wrong tire. It
Yeah.
could either be oversized or undersized. And that's what a lot of people are struggling with. Oftentimes they have engaged somebody who's undersized, oversized, and now later they are coming to discover that, oh, I have now found somebody that fits in. And then you're going to mess up a lot of people's life. And you don't want to do that. This is so this is so important. Okay. All right, so for today, as we round up this conversation, the question is, how do we fight for our love? What are the steps people should take to be able, when the spark dies, when the emotional connection disappears, when you no longer feel in love, instead of checking out of the relationship and start negotiating new relationships, is there other things people can do? So, Pastor Victor, let's deal with that for tonight as we come to round this up. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir, I can hear you loud and clear. Okay.
Okay.
Um, that's such a profound question. Really, really profound. So I think The first major problem, because definitely this conversation, I can predict that the primary people who would participate are believers, but there might be people who really don't um, practice the Christian faith. So for believers, I would say that marriage is more than just some emotional connection to just fulfill cultural obligations because you've gotten to that age. It has to do more with and the primary, because the idea is before you can put a definition on something, you have to look at the precedents. Where is this coming from? Where was it ordained? To what end is this? One of the primary function of the marriage union, according to scripture, is to raise godly seeds. So couples should realize that there's a higher calling. In as much as there are a lot of things that are required to drive the marriage union so as not to make it a boring and very tiresome journey, you must realize that those things are tools, they are implements to help you have a not stress-free ride, but a successful ride. That's what I would say. But then we have to realize that there's a higher calling. Number one, the marriage union mirrors the relationship between Christ and the church. So it's more than just a man loving a woman. This is like a physical representation of the relationship that exists between God and man. So when men look at your marriage, the original concept in the heart of God is to give them a physical representation. They should be able to interpret what's going on um, in the spiritual implication of the relationship that God has with man. That's what this is supposed to physically represent. And then, like I said previously, marriage is supposed to be to raise godly seed. So there is a higher calling. It's just like when Paul said, "This thing I do, not looking at, paraphrasing now, not looking at the things that have been done before, I press onto the mark." So when we go into this union with number one, the commitment to God, number two, commitment to our partners, where you're paying attention to your partner, you're paying attention to loving, caring, and respecting them in the union as ordained by God. You're paying attention to the formula in scriptures because, like I say all the time, there is a formula, an exact formula for marriage. You're paying attention to that in scriptures. You're paying attention to the reason of godly seeds. There are going to be a lot of times where it's like the spark is gone, but because there's a higher purpose, both of you are going to be very intentional about rekindling the spark. The issue is that there's really no higher purpose, and so people do not necessarily see the need to do certain things. Yeah. It's just like I'm going to give two examples to back this up, just before I round up the point. We've had situations where um, it, one of the latest ones, he got married to her and she was plus sized. The moment she went through his surgery or whatever it is she did and she reduced in size, she divorced him because at that point she began to feel too good for him. But before they got married, he didn't mind the fact that she was plus size. He loved her regardless. But the moment she reduced in size, she became too good for him. So those kinds of selfish behaviors can only show forth in a marriage that does not serve a higher purpose. When you realize that this is a service towards God and this is a transgenerational assignment, because if the name of God is supposed to be preserved in a generation, if godly seeds that will raise the banner of Christ high are going to come out in this generation, that's a sense of purpose that you are willing to take. So it's going to lead to a lot of sacrifice. It's going to lead to a lot of, saying sorry out of turns, just doing whatever it takes because you realize that it's more than just us. In as much as I'm important, my partner is important, this is serving a kingdom purpose. There is something higher. And so anytime we see that, oh, this thing is not working, we can easily call ourselves to order. And of course, God is sitting above the union. And so if we've committed it to God, He can even, sometimes we might not even realize that certain things are going wrong. And then God calls your attention and says, no, this one, you've not been doing it. Or He sends people who are, oversight over us and, mentors. And then, in conversations, they can be like, oh, have you guys stopped doing this? You're supposed to do this. So there are systems that can be in place to help us to always rekindle this because it's so many years. If God grants us long life, we have 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. That's what we're anticipating for to be together. You can't expect it to be the same tempo all true, but they are workable strategies by God and then by application of principles that we can utilize in restoring the spark at any time that it is lost. Because, like we've established already, it can be lost and it can also be recovered through a careful and intentional process. Thank you, sir.
Profound, profound point you made there. The fact that people should begin to go into marital relationships with purposes beyond them. Because once the purpose of getting married is not just about me, myself, my preferences, what I want, what I don't want, what I like, what I don't like, what I'm attracted to, what I'm not attracted to, without a higher purpose, then the situation is that once things go south, once things, the spark is gone. Once I wanted a plumpy person, this person has lost weight. Once anything goes in a way and manner that is inconsistent with us and our preferences, then the next thing we want to do is to check out instead of engaging systems, protocols, and procedures that will help us reignite this passion. This is so, this is so important. And just like you said, it's possible for, and like we've said, it's possible for this spark to disappear. You also made a profound point there when you said the tempo might fluctuate in a relationship. The purpose of this conversation is there something we can be intentional about so that when the tempo goes down, we up it again. When the tempo is beginning to go down, we know what to do to re-engineer it. And I'll give one point, then you're coming back to give another point, okay? Now, I want to also add that we should always keep in mind that even though sometimes romantic sparks just happen without our contribution, you just walk into this space, walk into the VIP lounge, walk into the networking meeting, and as soon as your eyes cross the eyes of this lady or this guy, there is this spark, there is this connection, there is this, I've never felt like this before. You may not contribute anything to engineering the spark, but can I tell you, if that spark will be sustained, then you must be personally responsible for sustaining it. I'm saying, as we go into relationships, we must come with a maintenance culture at the back of our mind. You will not always feel the spark. You will not always feel connected to this person. I don't know how people wake up on the wrong side of the bed, but if that is possible, you might wake up on the wrong side of the bed from time to time. It will become your responsibility by a life of intentionality to know that my connection with this person is waning, our connection, our communication level is going down, our conflict resolution styles are messing with our emotional connection. What can we do differently? What do I need to do every morning? What do I need to say every morning? What do I need to do differently to keep the spark? It is our responsibility to maintain it, even when it starts on its own. A lot of us, it starts on its own and we want it to be sustained on its own without our contribution. That will never happen. As soon as you make it your responsibility to sustain it, it will make a lot of difference. Once you realize that it's my job to sustain it, it will make a lot of difference. That is profound. Did you get my point? Let's hear your next
Sir.
point. And we're just doling out bullet points on what people can do to take them
Yes,
to the.
sir.
Let's hear you out again today.
Okay, sir. So, like just like you've said, there's a sense of responsibility that keeps us consistent in the art of reigniting whatever affection and passion. I think I would also say that a sense of expectation is also responsible, or should I say a sense of expectation or a sense of false expectation is most times responsible for the reason why people fall out of love. People get married to an idea, they don't get married to the person. So they see your prospects, they know that it looks like you have the ability to become someone else in the process of that marriage. So literally they get married to that anticipated future. And so if they are in the process and it's looking like after a couple of years, they're not making any conscious step towards that idea in their head, then they begin to reverse in their expression of love. Yeah. And apart from this, many people it's this personally is actually a very serious problem because one of the things I used to always say is um there are certain things that you cannot live with. And of course, in the clarity challenge, for those who are going to participate, they're going to begin to get to know some of these things, the non-negotiables. Some of these things have to be clearly defined before marriage takes place. You have to know specifically whether you can live with certain things. So it's almost like you have to fall in love, or you have to grow in affinity with who you're looking at life and direct with you here and now. So when they begin to evolve, when they begin to become a better version of themselves, um, the love can only increase in intensity because you already like the person or you're already together with the person, you already respect the person, you're already um, sacrificing for that person and not the idea of who they can be. So when they grow, when they advance, when they evolve, it only helps that feeling to expand. But if the idea from the beginning was to wait for them to get to that point before your affection begins, then it will lead to a lot of problems. Because a lot of people is like they are reserving the love for a future time. I apologize for that. So they are actually reserving the love for a future time. So their affection, their sacrifice, all of the expressions um, that they have within them, it is um, being preserved. So they are preserving it for that future idea. And when that future idea never comes in, then they walk out. Yeah, so this can also be a cause of um, all of these conflict and issues in marriages. And so this is the point that I'm giving basically. It will help to ensure that you're not getting married to an idea, that you're getting married to an actual person who is right in front of you, who has weaknesses, who, whatever it is, having an understanding of who it is you're getting married to and being committed to learning about them and growing with them. Yeah, then I think one more point. Um, this is still from this point, but some people can actually um, get married and begin to try to alternate or try to change their partner into something else. It's still related to this basically, and it leads to frustration. So in this direction, it is frustration that now leads to a decision to walk out. Yeah. So all of these things can kill the spark. It's like you're intentionally carrying water and pouring it on the fire that is existent in your relationship. Yeah. The fire is burning, but it's like you're saying, okay, this thing is too good. Let me keep looking for things from outside that can quench it. So it's these 2 points merge up in one to mean be with that person, be in the moment. Don't be in the future or don't be in the past. Because some people they get married and the person is all good, something happens, and then it's like they get lost in the past. The person was so good when they got married, but right now a lot of things, so they now live in the past. They love the idea of the person in the past and they cannot cope, they can't deal with the person presently. So there are a lot of permutation in these regards. The idea is live in the moment, whatever situation, whatever circumstance you're going through, go through it together in the moment. That will help you to always be in touch emotionally to grow and to solve whatever issue it is together instead of um, waiting for them to meet you from the past or waiting for them to get to the future before you meet them there. Thank you very much, sir.
Profound points you make there. A lot of
Yes,
the
sir.
times, expectations are not realistic.
Yes, sir.
And so, once those expectations are not being fulfilled, then the emotional spark begins to disappear. So, we need to look at our expectations again and make sure they are realistic. You have also talked about the fact that sometimes we get married to an idea. And
Yes, sir.
when that idea is not realized, we begin to lose interest. and we're no longer patient to wait for this person to grow into what our expectations are. We're not even thinking that we can support change in them. We just want them to be what we dream or we have dreamed them to be, and once they're not there, and then we're like, and then that takes us to the third point you made, which was because of your idea about what you want and what you're looking at, now you are consciously or unconsciously beginning to try to change them into your idea of what you wanted when you negotiated the relationship. Oftentimes, you did not even probably communicate those expectations. So sometimes unrealistic expectations, sometimes communication expectations that were not even properly communicated, because when vision is cast, when vision is clearly communicated, then people know the expectations and then they position themselves accordingly. I want to also bring another school of thought. You have said this before, but it's also important to bring it to the notice of people. One of the challenges that we have is that we wait until our relationship, our vehicles break down before we go to the mechanic. There is no, routine maintenance to keep the vehicle functional. It is so important that people come to realize that to build and successfully engineer and execute a an effective relationship, a working relationship, a blissful relationship, we must incorporate counseling and therapy into the narrative. This is so important. The challenge we have sometimes, mostly with men, is that most men are not going to read no books on relationships. Most men are not going to go for any counseling. You'll notice that it's always the women going for the counseling, it's always the women looking for help. The guy doesn't even think there's a problem. You talk with the lady, she's wondering how in the world did I even get into this relationship. You talk with the guy, it's like his relationship is at its best, and you're wondering. And so it is so important that once the spark begins to go, it is so important that once you no longer understand what's happening, it is so good to seek counsel. Seeking counsel does not demean or reduce who you are, your know-how, your intelligence, your skills. It doesn't reduce anything about you. It only exposes both of you to a higher thought. Oftentimes, you go for counseling and the counselor re-emphasizes, re-echoes, or confirms what you've been telling your partner about. Unfortunately, for some people, when they talk to a third party or a counselor or whoever, and the counselor says a thing and their partner goes ahead to do it, they become agitated, infuriated. Each time I tell you stuff you will not do, but once somebody else says it, you want to do. No, that's a misconception of the purpose of counseling. The point is that yes, you have said it, but you have gone to somebody else who said the same thing using a different approach, using different examples that enabled your partner to better understand the point you have been making. And that has enabled the person to take the next step. So you want to support change and encourage the person and work with the person instead of becoming angry that, so you finally got to do this because somebody else said that. You don't want to do that. It doesn't make sense. The other point I also want to bring quickly is the fact that people must come to understand the chemistry of affection. A lot of people do not realize that it doesn't take rocket science to create an affection. As a matter of fact, somebody said it takes very little effects to create an affection. Simply asking somebody, how are you doing? Simply caring for somebody, simply getting involved with their world, simply validating, appreciating their beauty, their haircut, their hairstyle. It doesn't take rocket science. You don't have to buy a car to create a spark. You might just buy a simple gift, but the way you presented it can be the game changer. The way you care can be the game changer. Listen, when you are in a relationship and the spark begins to go down, your partner begins to change. Sometimes, instead of blaming them, instead of accusing them, why not ask yourself, is there something I am doing or not doing? Is that something I stopped doing? Or is that something I started doing that is shutting them down, that is making them not to feel connected again, that is making them to go back into their cocoons? Is it possible that they share stuff with me and they feel I've used it against them? Whatever. If you married somebody at the time of marriage, you said this was the best angel you've ever met. If 6 months down the line you think they are now demons, shouldn't we ask you questions? Are we going to just examine? Is it not possible that there is something you did or didn't do that has brought them to this point of change? Is it possible that if you change certain things in the way you function, it might also change the narrative? So we must understand that to create, to restore, to bring back that spark is not rocket science. Little demonstrations of care, love, tenderness, appreciation, validation, gratitude, praise, confirmation, affirmation, simple things, and then paying attention when somebody is talking to you. A lot of the times in this day and time, people are, you're talking to somebody, they're on their phones. You're talking to somebody, they're on the television. You're talking to somebody, they're not paying attention to you. It's so important that for effective communication to take place, look into the eyes of the person talking to you. There is a connection it brings, there is a spark it brings, there is an intimacy it brings, and it changes the narrative profoundly. So,
Sure.
as a, what do you got to say? And what more do you want to add?
Wow. This is really, really profound, sir. It is profound. It's like a working strategy that can assist in rekindling um, all of the affection, all of the love in a relationship. And the thing is, it's rather surprising that all through scriptures, for example, Adam just got to meet Eve on the spot, and then it was like spark and a progression, and we see many other instances where it's like they got to meet themselves on the spot and then that flowed. So at a point I started asking myself that question. In our parents' time, there were many people who literally just met on the wedding day, and then you can see them 40 years later, 35 years later, and they are bubbling in love and affection, and you're wondering what's going on. While a set of people, what made them to meet and interact was the a explosion of butterflies, and then 8 months into marriage, they're telling you, we can't do this again, and you're wondering what's wrong, what's the problem. So I think on a final note, um, all of the things that we've stated as qualities, for example, the emotional attachment, the physical component, the soulish component, that's character, the intangible things that are a component of a person, all of these things are very vital, are very important. But we should pay attention to the fact that these are additions to the person, these are additions to the individual. Yeah, because anything that can change is basically an addition, except if a quality of a person cannot change, then we say that's the person. Because for it to be a person, the person, it means it's something that cannot change. Because except you go for a plastic surgery, or you age, because basically it's due to the course of nature, you would age. But like at the moment right now, except you go for a plastic surgery, your face is your face. So, but character, a lot of other things can actually change. Even the physical component will eventually change. So the idea is to be together with a person. So the question now is, who is the person? Because is the person, it's just like when Paul was saying, I put my body. So you'll be asking the question, who is Paul? Who is his body? So who is the person? The wholeness of that person is who you are together with in response to God's desire for this union that represents the relationship between Christ and the church. So it's a whole lot. It's actually a whole lot. But what I can say is that with God on our side and with our being very intentional in obedience to God, in aligning to the structure of the marriage union, we're going to succeed. So, like Paul said, Paul counseled that you don't necessarily have to get married. I think that was one of the first counsels that I had problems with when I was studying scriptures then. Until later, when I read that scripture in context, I began to realize that what Paul was trying to say is if you cannot obey God in its entirety, then you should probably just avoid the marriage union altogether. Because a lot of people have different definitions for what the marriage union is about. They will tell you roles, responsibilities, different things that don't align to the scriptural template. If you want to do marriage, do it right. If you're not going to do it according to the scriptural template, then you can as well stay single. It's you're not going to be judged for it. As long as you can serve God in honesty and in truth, you can stay single for the rest of your life. You don't have to be married. But if you must be married, then you have to do it according to God's standard, and then you have to be intentional about seeing that it succeeds. So this is not, let's see where the boat will lead. The boat has to lead home. It is a compulsory thing. It has to lead home. Thank you very much, sir.
Wow, profound point that you made there. There must be a clear intention to lead this boat home and not always wanting to abandon it once things go south. We must take responsibility, accept responsibility, and change the narrative. I'm going to, in a minute, call you back to give your final words as we round up this. But before then, let me point out a few things I want our audience to pay close attention to. Number one, I want to suggest that in dealing with this kind of situation, you need to model excellence. Modeling excellence is that oftentimes we demand change from our partners, but we don't exemplify that change. Almost all of the times, what you want people to do, if you do it first, if you lead the way, they will find it easier to follow than when you are all about dishing out expectations, making demands, insisting that certain things must change in their behavior, in their attitude, in their disposition. How about that thing you want them to do, saturate them with it, begin to do. Oh, it's not romantic. Well, since he was not romantic and you chose to marry him, now that he's not romantic, who knows whether lavishing him with romance and being able to position yourself in such a way that you model romance, you model excellence, he probably will learn from you and begin to follow. So why not model excellence? The next point I also want to bring forward is the fact that as long as two people are together in a relationship, the possibility of hurting one another, the possibility of saying things a certain way that hurts the other person, or not even saying anything and it hurts the other person, is also a possibility, and it makes that emotional connection to diminish. Why not position yourself in such a way that you're willing to forgive every hurt? Forgiveness is critical for changing the narrative in any relationship. So I want to recommend that you practice the forgiveness challenge. In the clarity, in love languages, there's what we call the forgiveness challenge. Take a piece of paper, write down everything about and in the life of your partner that you are yet to forgive them for. So even when you claim to have forgiven them, you still notice that you're still struggling with it and it is still affecting your behavior towards them. Itemize them and then begin to pray to God to give you the ability to forgive them and let it go. If you write it down and begin to pray for the ability to forgive them and make affirmations like, I forgive them, no matter how I feel, you'll be shocked how it will positively impact on how you relate with them, and it could change the narrative. Can I also suggest that you also want to apologize for every omission? Listen, nobody is perfect. You're going to come to that point. You're always going to come to that point where you didn't do what you got to do, or you did what you're not supposed to do, and people are hurt. Instead of going into the defensive mode and beginning to defend yourself and then beginning to explain why it had to be so, why not apologize? I thought that it was men, because of ego, that would struggle with forgiveness. I'm amazed that in my lifetime I've met women again and again who continue to open up sincerely that they've never told their husbands I'm sorry in the last 5, 10, or more years. I'm amazed how people come into relationships and these basic tenets of relationship are ignored. Apologize. You don't apologize in a relationship because what you did is wrong. Sometimes you have to apologize because what you did, though with good intention, created pain for the other person. So whether it was right or wrong, you can't ignore the fact that you caused pain and you have to apologize for the pain. Can I also suggest, as we navigate relationships, maintain eye contact. No matter the pain, no matter what you're dealing with, maintain eye contact. Speak with your eyes. It will make a lot of difference. When relationships begin to collapse, one of the first things that is lost is eye contact. If we are committed to making sure that we maintain that, it will make a lot of difference. Can I also suggest stop taking your partner for granted? Never do that. Never. I've said that it is irresponsible and disrespectful for your partner to be talking to you and your eyes are on your phone. If what you're doing on the phone is that important, they deserve that you obtain their permission to multitask, to be doing what you got to do while listening. Because the truth is that it is almost impossible to listen without paying attention. It is, I repeat, it is disrespectful and is not acceptable. Can I also, I don't want to go, I'm not going to belabor this. I think I'll leave this conversation for another time, but minimize controlling tendencies. This tendency to manipulate and control people, nothing else destroys the love, the romance, the connection they feel for you, like feeling manipulated, feeling controlled. You always want to have your way. You always want to be the one that decides. You're always the one, they're always the one that will apologize. They're always the one that will seek your forgiveness. That's controlling, and it's going to damage the connection in the relationship. I wish I had time, because we're out of time, to tell you that you need to practice what we call the no negative remarks, the 30-day challenge. If you're going to reignite the passion in your relationship during the next 30 days, you want to engage yourself in the no negative remarks challenge. So 30 days beginning from today, no matter what your partner does or does not do, no rebukes, no corrections, no handing instructions, no complaining, no attacking. Just if you can't say something right, say nothing and walk away. It's called the 30-day challenge. I guarantee you, if you do that, you will notice that the spark will begin to come again. And it will make a lot of difference. Can I also summarize by saying, give your partner a safe space. Excuse me. Try to give your partner a safe space to express their emotions. Don't stifle your partner. Don't lock them up. Don't hinder them. Don't make it difficult for them to express themselves. Is it possible for you to create a space where your partner can be themselves? It will make a lot of difference. I've got so much to say that I've got time for. And so, Pastor Victor, like final words.
Sir, so I would like to say um, that, like we've all seen, Pastor Mason is an enigma. Like when it comes to relationship affairs, yes, I recommend him anytime, any day. So if we literally continue on this tempo, this particular topic, and you give him enough time to talk, we might be talking here till tomorrow. So on a final note, I would love to say, on the idea of unrealistic expectations, avoid unrealistic expectations in the sense of having unrealistic models. Yeah, now when I'm saying unrealistic models, I don't mean the models are really unrealistic. It's that we don't pay attention to timelines. So you can see somebody that you really desire to be like, but the problem is that you're not paying attention to timelines. So they were not this person or they were not this good when they started. And these are things you can find out if you just ask simple questions. So many people have patterned or they've created a template in their mind and there is a level of perfection that can only be achieved from experience. But they are expecting that level of perfection to come in immediately. So two things are very important. I have conversations with people all the time. And one of the things that you always hear people saying is don't talk about marriage until you're married because you cannot understand. Yes, there is the knowledge of marriage and there is the experience. Truthfully speaking, you cannot have the experience of marriage until you are married. That's where you put the knowledge to test. Even those who are married, their scripts have to be marked by the knowledge. That's the reason why you prepare. That's the reason why you don't get married and then you say, okay, now we're married, let's start learning about marriage. No, you learn about marriage and then you practice, mark your scripts. When you fail, you correct, you keep practicing intentionally to ensure that all that you've learned, you put it to practice. Yeah, that's why many people, there are actually a lot of people who they know a lot, but then they don't see the reality of what they know in their relationships because they never really take time to evaluate. So you are from an external perspective, you can easily see that somebody is wrong, but when you are in the exact context, you don't realize. So even if you're a marriage counselor or you're a relationship counselor, you also have to mark your scripts every now and then. You also have to check whether your life aligns to the principles that you teach. Because many times we're at fault in that regard. We actually teach what is right. People apply that principle, it works for them. But then when you come into our own personal space, you don't see those things working because we don't apply those same principles. Because so even for people who are relationship counselors, you probably even need oversight. Yeah, so the counselor needs to be counseled because many a times, because of the limitation of the human nature, you might not necessarily be able to know when certain things are going wrong. It's easy to spot it in other people, but it's hard to spot it in your own self. So you need structures of accountability. It doesn't matter what you're doing, even if you are the high best relationship counselor in Nigeria, you need to also be counseled. Yeah, so that what I'm saying in essence is don't have unrealistic models. When you want to pattern your life after a certain set of people, find out the timeline. What happened at the beginning? Were there hitches? How did you get through it? You know, how did you survive? How did you get to this point? Find out the entire timeline. Don't fall in love with their current status when it took 10 years, 12 years, 15 years to build it. Yeah, so you are expecting magic. You just want a partner that will come and start doing the things that somebody took 15 years to learn. It makes no sense. On a final note, um, we have to realize that any experience that is not in line with the knowledge that we can see in scripture is unnecessary. Don't teach any experience that does not align to the scriptural template. So it doesn't matter what you did that worked. Oh, I beat my wife and she aligns in submission. That's none of our business. The fact that you applied a non-scriptural principle to ensure submission means we don't care about it. Yeah. Oh, I did this to my husband. Maybe I poisoned him or something. Whatever it is that you did, it worked for you. Don't talk about it. We're not interested. The only things we're interested in hearing are how you applied scriptural principles and you saw it work. Yeah. So that those who are observing from an external perspective can now pattern their lives and say, okay, yes, this thing that the Bible says actually works. If I submit in this way, it will bring about this kind of result. If I love in this way, it will bring about this kind of result. Love and submission and not conditional in marriage, according to scriptures. So the whole idea of if he is worthy of submission, I will submit. If she is worthy of love, I will love. No. According to the Bible, if you marry an idiot, you have to submit to the idiot. That's why you have enough time to vet and ensure that you don't get married to an idiot. Because whoever it is you get married to, you are supposed to submit to them. Yeah. So you have the chance to, by God, choose your head or position yourself to be found by a good head so that you as the body will not be grounded to powder. Thank you very much.
Wow, profound thoughts. I believe our audience heard that. We have used the last 3 days to talk to married people about what they can do to keep the spark in their relationships. During the next several days, we're coming up with another conversation, and this time it's going to be focused on singles. As we round off to tonight's conversation, I like that point he made where he said a lot of us men want to only love if she respects me. A lot of women want to only respect if he loves me. How about loving her into respecting you? How about respecting him into loving you? A lot of the times we are our own undoing. We want to demand change. We don't want to model change. Be the change that you desire. Can I also round up by saying, whatever you feel like is going right or wrong in your relationship, try to make sure the sexual connection is maintained. Almost all of the times, if a couple continues to make love every week, the probability is that their connection will continue to rise. Most of us, once we begin to have issues, then we begin to avoid sex, then we begin to have headache each time we are approached, then we begin to be tired, we begin to bring up all kinds of excuses. That is something that lovemaking does to keeping the fire, keeping the connection, be committed to a sustained love life. I wish I had time to also let you know, most times before we get married to women, we say nice things to them that make them fall in love with us and get married to us. As soon as we are married to them, we stop talking. Can I suggest, and I don't have all the time, men after the marriage keep talking. There is something it does to the woman. As a matter of fact, in most marriages, the men stop talking and the women start talking. When the women start talking, something goes wrong because it's not their strength. I wish I had time to show that from scriptures. But this has been 3 profound days. You will agree with me, Pastor Victor. And for our audience, I also want to believe you've been able to pick out a couple of stuff that will change the narrative in your relationship going forward. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to make contributions. Feel free to make suggestions. And feel free to disagree with us. You don't have to agree with us. If you think you have a better argument, put it out there. We're going to look at it, and it could form the basis of another conversation. Wow, Mr. Victor, thank you for being here all the way from the city of Abuja. Thank you for the values you bring into the Love Life Institute, and then into the people in your space, counseling, mentoring, and providing the guide that people need. I hope you make yourself available so that we can do this again from time to time. It's something that our community will continue to need. Thank you so much and do have a wonderful day.